This is sort of just at any point, start gesticulating in some sort of crazy way, and I'll know I need to plug in the microphone. But I can't see any octopuses out there at the moment, so it sounds like you can hear me. I can go louder, because I have been in the past a PE teacher. I'm not actually a PE teacher really anymore, but I was doing a bit today, so apologies about the PE kit. Okay, so I want to give you guys an update first of all, a little bit of housekeeping I suppose for about 5 minutes before I introduce Tim to you and we hear the main part of the evening. I just wanted us to recap the itinerary, also to reshare with Tim whereabouts throughout India we're going, as well as visiting Kolkata, and I just thought also to remind us to whet the appetite once again of this great expedition that we're lucky enough to be going on. So, great 3 days off school first of all, it's always a winner, and thank you to Sir Christopher Stone, our executive head, for allowing us to have those 3 days off, because actually we don't really encourage any time off from school, as you guys know. But because it's an educational trip, we were okay with that. So we're going to be leaving on the Wednesday. Now the travel agents, they tried to niggle me and they said, well, have you thought about flying with Qatar out of London? We could save £200 there. I said, no guys, I'm not having this. It's Emirates only. And so we've managed to fix that, and we're still flying, of course, with Emirates out of Birmingham. Because, I mean, after a long journey home, we're going to be tired. And the last thing the students and staff would want would be then a coach from London. You know, getting out of London can be a real nightmare back up to Birmingham. So that's really great. We're still on Emirates, a fantastic airline, and we're looking forward to that. Plus, mums and dads, it's an easy drop-off. But we fly overnight, obviously via Dubai, and then land in the morning, where we're going to check in and spend some time at the hotel before we do a little tour around Calcutta there. Then we spend a couple of days, and into Sunday, working at Future Hope, learning with them, sharing each other's experiences. I mean, right now, many of you would have seen the updates that Tim's organisation sends out. I think it was just 2 or 3 days ago there was an update, and on it I clicked on it and they saw they'd just been finishing their work experience, which is what some of you are doing right now this week. There's so many parallels that you're really going to have so much to talk about and to share with each other. So I'm really quite excited about that. Next we have, from there we'll continue to work on the Sunday, and that evening again we go up by overnight train up to Darjeeling, and then across from there across to... Oh, okay, sure.
Do you know how to do that?
Yeah. I did. Oh, we're on a different... Do you want any lights on the front? Is that what's blocking?
You can't really see it so well, so I'm just wondering.
Any good?
Yeah.
We've got lots of different options. That was the one we were.
You want the ones on the screen, that's fine.
That's the one.
Thank you. So I'll let Tim pronounce this place, Tim.
Mayfair Hotel, I don't know.
So that's where we'll be staying, where we're going to go into a little bit of a trek there, a packed breakfast, packed lunch, so a little bit of, so we've done some work with an NGO, supporting them, learning from them, learning with them, and then we're doing a bit of a trek there, which will be fantastic. That's at the base of the Himalaya, and from there we then fly over to Delhi and across to Agra. Now, we'll come back to that in a minute, where of course we'll be visiting the Taj Mahal and doing the tour of that whole area. But then we fly again to Chennai and then enjoy a day and an evening in this lovely hotel with the swimming pool and the beach, a day of recreation at the end of the trip before we fly back again on the Sunday evening. Lovely time to come back, 6:45, and then time for a nice debrief with mum and dad, tuck up in bed, and back to school Monday morning. So it's going to be great. It's just going to be so great. And you'll be tired, but you'll be exhilarated to come and share with all your peers who think, if only I persuaded my mum and dad to cough up some cash. You know, that's what it's going to be like. But actually there's a change to the itinerary, just one change. I hope you don't mind. The change is at the Clark Shiraz Hotel in Agra. Guys, help yourselves, come on through. Grab a seat. If you'd like a juice or a biscuit, you're most welcome to. There has been a change. Unfortunately, that hotel was due a refurbishment and unfortunately that wasn't done in time, so we're not able to go to that hotel, but pleasingly, instead we've been upgraded for free to the Wyndham Grand Agra, which if I show you a couple of nice images, show you the sort of accommodation that we're going to be lucky enough to stay in at this part of the trip. This really is, I was quite excited when, I love a free upgrade, who doesn't? But we look at some of the images in this amazing complex, go to their gallery, and so Mrs. Mead, who's coming with us, I know that she enjoys a little bit of the spa treatment, and there is a gym for those of you who like to do some exercise. And we look at some of the rooms. This kind of thing is going to be pretty special. So we're quite lucky there to get that free up, and that's why I go with Edwin Doran. I travel with them because I've experienced things with them, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, South Africa, and when there's a sticky moment, they always deliver and help you. So that was an example of that. So already got that free upgrade, which is lovely. Now, we pre-planned this trip a long time in advance, haven't we? So that we can hopefully make it possible. Because if any shorter time, we wouldn't be able to, no one could afford it. So, but obviously over the sort of, 16 months notice we had, there are changes with airport taxes. Now, Edwin Doran have been great again. They have cut back from their profit margin to ensure that we can keep that to a minimum. The only change in cost is £15. £15 a head, but practically 2 years out, I think is pretty good. So we were spot on. That includes all the insurance and everything else, the full board, everything else. So there is a £15 per head increase that we'll write to you about. It doesn't need to be paid now. It needs to be paid, we can add an extra 50 pence to your normal instalments or whatever it is, and you'll be fine. So unfortunately, that was always inevitable, but it's good that we kept that to a minimum. Chris asked me to talk to you a little bit about the inoculations and a little bit about visas. Chris and Lucy, who are obviously management of the school, but it's quite tricky because so Chris is the boss and Lucy is a senior administrator, and I couldn't really tell them just to calm down a bit because it really is a long way out, and the inoculations, really the advice is only a long time would be 8 weeks in advance to do it, so we're still 8 months out, so we do have plenty of time, but I know there are a few parents who are wanting a little early heads up, so of course we've done that. Again, the advice is actually only 4 to 6 weeks in advance to book your appointment with your GP or travel clinic or your practice nurse who's responsible within your particular clinic. So actually you've got ages, but of course I'd recommend maybe going 12 weeks rather actually, or 8 to 12 is probably even better, but that's plenty of time. They will make sure, of course, that your child has an up-to-date standard vaccines, the MMR. There's been a lot of issues, hasn't there, in Wales when the MMR hasn't been delivered. They'll make sure that all those standard ones are up to date, as well as the necessary infectious disease inoculations. These are the ones you are likely to require, just an early heads up, I suppose. Hep A, Hep B, polio, typhoid, rabies, Japanese encephalitis, hard to say that one, probably got it wrong, any doctors out there apologise, and obviously some anti-malarial medication. Now, that sounds like a worrying amount of things, doesn't it? But actually, it isn't too bad. In terms of the anti-malarials, there are a range of, I'll come to you just one moment. The anti-malarials, now, I've been lots of development trips, Africa and various ones, there's lots of anti-malarials. Just from my personal recommendation, you'll go to your own GPs, that's their professionalism. Doxycycline has minimal, if any, side effects, and it really is successfully worked on all the people I've worked with when I've gone to Africa and various different places without a single problem. But your GP will give you the best advice. Other antimalarials can cause some issues in terms of bad dreams, etc., etc. There's the lady there. Yeah, yes, but your GP, they've got all the information. They have each GP has a system. They click on India, they click on all the. This is a drop list that comes down, and they know everything. But I can send you that.
We can also insert this video into the India blog as well,
Yeah.
actually, so that you can access this session at any point if you want to go over anything.
Tonight, there's 6 or so people who can't be here, and we're putting the video on the shared area of the school anyway. But certainly, your GP will fully know about all this. Okay, in terms of the visa application, there's lots of different ways to get a visa. Going back, 12, 13 years, wherever I was lucky enough to go to India. I didn't know the best way to do it. So I walked into the consulate in Birmingham, and I queued up for about 8 hours with the rest of the Indian community of Birmingham, and it took an awful long time. And if you really want to taste the real India, that's the way I'd recommend that you do it. But actually, if you want to do it the British way, don't do it that way. There's various different ways you can do. This is the application process. It's an online application process where you can do one of two things. There basically is an application form. There's a declaration form that you have to complete. They're all available online on this website. Again, this whole PowerPoint will be on the shared area for your students, children to access. And you can either then book an appointment, so you fill out the forms and then you book an appointment at a specific time, so it's nice and easy, and go to the consulate in Birmingham. Or you can post it, but if you post it, there's a couple of sneaky things. You can't say it's for Birmingham, you have to say it's for London and send it to London. But if you're prepared to spend a tiny bit more money, this most simple way probably is through, and easiest way is through Scots Visas. And within a week you can have your 6-monthly tourist visa. You do nothing, you can send it all from home, and it gets recorded delivery back to your house. It's really very smooth. It's up to you. If you want to go into that part of Birmingham, find your car parking space, fiddle around, it's entirely up to you. There are handling fees for using that service, but again, it's up to you guys. You've got a range of choices there. This is very efficient. What you'll need is a passport, valid for a minimum of 6 months, with at least 2 blank pages, 2 recent identical colour photos, different size from the standard passport photo, so you'll have to make note of that, and the application form that I mentioned, and the signed declaration. You send that all off, prepay online through the website, comes back to you within a week. If you really want to go crazy, 48 hours. But obviously, it's a 6-month visa, so you'd be crazy, you shouldn't do that now, because it will be expired by the time we went. But most importantly, tonight's not about those things. It's about welcoming one man whose name is Tim Grandage. Now, in life, you meet some incredible. You probably meet. I don't know about you. I mean, I'm 36, so okay, not that old. But I've met maybe 3 or 4 people in my life where you come across someone different, someone unique, and Sir Christopher Stone will be one of those people. But so too is Tim Grandage, who, well, I'm not going to steal his story, but is a remarkable gentleman, and it's a privilege, and thank you, Tim, for coming. I'm not going to say too much about that because you're going to tell the story, but thank you so much for coming, Tim. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed for inviting me this evening. It's great to be here, and we're really looking forward to seeing you in Calcutta. A lot of children are very excited about all of you coming, so that's fantastic. What I thought I'd do today is tell you a little bit about Future Hope and how we started. My life to date has been a series of mistakes, I think, where things have gone wrong. I wanted to be a doctor, but I failed on my A-levels, so there was no chance of doing that. And so I decided I'd go into banking, which seemed to be a good thing at the time. I joined HSBC, and they hosted me all the way around the world. One of the places was Birmingham, actually. Eventually I ended up in Calcutta. And I think the thing that really pleased me about being in Calcutta, I was very young, I was 28 years old, 29 years old, and I was given my own branch to run, which when I was given that job sounded incredibly exciting. As it got near to the day of taking on the job, I became incredibly nervous, so much so that my boss said to me, look, Tim, don't worry, you'll be okay. If you have any problems, pick up the telephone, give me a ring, I'll tell you what to do. Within 15 minutes of getting into my branch, I didn't know what to do, so I picked up the telephone to ring my boss, and the telephone was dead. And it remained dead for the next 3 months. I'd like to tell you that's how I learned about banking, but I don't think it's very true. The thing about Calcutta is it's an incredibly vibrant, exciting city. It's a city where the richest people in the world, where the poorest people in the world, it's always moving, it's always churning, it's always happy. My wife, who came and joined me there 18 years ago, says it's one of the safest cities she's ever been in. She feels completely safe, far more so than in London or wherever in this country. Having said so, there is this huge contrast, and I think the thing that really shocked me were the children on the streets, and that's what I want to tell you about. And it really started off, as a young banker, I was given a car, and I drive myself to the bank, and I dump my car by the bank, and then I go into the bank, work all day, go out for a meal in the evening time, and go back to my car. And one night, about 6 weeks after I'd arrived in Calcutta, I got back to my car at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was surrounded by children and by women. They weren't aggressive at all, but they were incredibly intense. And they said to me, look, if you're going to leave your car here, it's going to get stolen. And if it gets stolen, you'll report it to the police, and then they'll hassle us, so there'll be a problem. Let us look after it. And I was like, ha-ha, they want bakshish, they want money. And I couldn't have been more wrong. And they looked after the car then for the next 6 weeks, and I felt very guilty that I was a rich guy, and I wasn't giving them any money. And then one day, 6 weeks later, a young lad who was about 8, 9, 10 wasn't there. And I said to them, where's Bajwan? And they said, he's sick. And I said, well, has he gone home? Has he gone to hospital? And they said, don't be stupid. He doesn't have a home, and he can't afford to go to hospital. He's over there. So I wandered over there, and I found this child completely delirious with fever, with temperature. And then I knew what I could do. I knew I could pay back my debt. So I went back into the bank, and I looked down my list of customers, found a Dr. Chatterjee, and I rang him up and I said, look, Dr. Chatterjee, you don't know me. My name's Tim Grandage. I'm your bank manager. I've got a sick child. Can I bring him round? And he was so happy I wasn't talking about his overdraft. He said, bring him round now. He was slightly confused when I turned up in a suit and a tie, and the child was in rags, but he treated him anyway. And about 2 days later, I got a very agitated call from Dr. Chatterjee, who was a very senior orthopedic surgeon. He said, look, you remember that child you brought round to see me? And I said, yes. What happened? Well, he said, he turned up today in my waiting room. And I was furious. So I kept him waiting. And in Calcutta, they look after people from 6 in the evening until 10 o'clock in the evening. So he kept the boy waiting until about 10 o'clock at night. And then he stormed into his waiting room and said, what on earth do you want? And the boy turned around and said, nothing. I just came to say thank you, because I'm feeling good. And Dr. Chatterjee was so humbled by this that he said, look, I've been practicing medicine for 30 years and nobody's ever come to say thank you. If you've got more children like this, I'd like to treat them. And very stupidly, I said to Bajwan, if you've got any mates who are sick, bring them to the bank. Within a week, I had 20 children a day, all with their little noses pressed to my air-conditioned glass, waving at me. And my staff knew I was eccentric, and my customers thought, well, there are other banks down the road which I could go to. That's how we started, basically. We realised very soon that if you take a child off the streets and you get them well, and you put them back onto the streets, they'll come back a few days later, a few weeks later, with the same problems. So then we decided we needed to get children's homes. And that's how it's all started. But I'll take you back a little bit further. This is all the problems with the children on the streets. You look at this collage. I made this about 20 years ago. The police on the left-hand side beat up the children. On the top, you'll find them rag picking. On the right-hand side, there's a small boy where you can see his backside. Well, he'd been raped at the age of about 12 or 13. Just down below that, there's a young man about 24 years old who got elephantitis. And none of this needs to happen. It's all curable if you have the wherewithal to do it. This is Howrah Station, which is probably the largest station in India, possibly in Asia. This is a little boy who was just sleeping on the side. He was so frightened that he slept At least he stayed awake all night just to get the warmth of the sun the next morning and to feel secure. This youngster is just around the corner from one of our children's homes. He's collecting rubbish, and he needs to collect probably about 6 or 7 of those baskets per day in order to survive. What they do is they take them to a place called Dasnagar, and they sort them out. 1 rupee a bottle, 5 rupees a kilo of newspapers. And nowadays you need about 10 rupees to get breakfast, 15 rupees to get lunch, and 15 rupees to get supper. So you have to work pretty hard to sell things to get your food. When I took that picture, I wasn't sure whether that boy was sleeping, whether he was drugged, whether he was sick, or indeed whether he was whether he was dead. The thing that shocked me most, this is the main concourse of Howrah Station, and about 200 people have walked past him without even seeing him. Now, Indians are very friendly and very caring, but there were so many children at the time on the streets that they really didn't notice them. There are lots of small girls on the streets. Not as many girls as boys, because India, being quite a chauvinist country, they tend to push the boys out to work, and the girls are kept in the rural areas to look after the elderly, to do the cleaning and the washing, and to look after the younger siblings. These are a couple more girls making their food on a stove somewhere near one of the stations. Now, I don't know whether you saw the film Slumdog Millionaire. Latika, the girl who was in the film, she cheated on her husband, and so a blade was put on her face. And this is what happened in the next picture. This is Dilip, who was a 14-year-old who was with us. He was on the streets and he cheated on his friends. Money that they'd got, he kept for himself, and so they bladed him. And this happens very early in the very poor end of society. But luckily, my wife was a nurse, so she managed to sew him up. But both sides, the marks are still there. This is more modern Calcutta, and the crazy thing about Calcutta these days, you still have extremes of wealth and poverty. And you can see the businessmen going just straight past children who are sleeping on the streets. And that's always the case. But there's no jealousy and envy on this. People just get on with their lives. We work a lot in the bastis, or the slums. And these are children who are living just off the streets, but running around the streets in the daytime. But we're going nowhere. India is a hugely prosperous country, and if you have education, you have the chance to go places. We see a lot of children who are now hooked on glue sniffing, on solvents. And these are a group of youngsters who are high on dendrite glue. A lot of them also take ganja or marijuana. This little chap. You see warm little groups like this of children, and then when you get closer, you see what they're doing, and it's not quite as happy as you think it is. This little boy must be about 7 or 8, completely stoned out of his mind. That's the bad side. Now, the thing that the children on the streets will tell you is what fun it is there. And this is the monsoons. We're in the middle of the monsoons. I was in Calcutta 3 days ago, and it had rained, and there was that much water around. It normally happens about August, September. But this was probably September, and outside my bank, I was sitting on the right-hand side in my bank, looking out the window, and I thought, what an awful place. How on earth will I get home? I'm going to write off my shoes, I'm going to wet my suit, I may have to take my shoes and socks off and walk through this sort of sewage. How awful. And then I looked out of my window, and I saw the children. And there were children who have absolutely nothing, having the best time of their lives, playing, just really enjoying life, making fun out of nothing. Street children are full of spontaneity, are full of fun, full of creativity, and they love life. And the children you meet in Future Hope, they will tell you how fun life is on the streets. You go out, you earn a bit of money, you spend it on movies, you go to the films, get a bit of food and travel on. And that really taught me a huge lesson, that you've got to be happy with what you've got. As was the next picture, again, for a young banker aged 29 years old, pretty shocking, a picture of a child drinking from a dog. And this was just around the corner from my bank, thinking, what on earth is going on? Why are animals looking after our children, not us? And so we started Future Hope. Originally, my Bara Babu, my chief clerk, retired from the bank after 40 years. We built something on his roof. And then after that, we used my flat. I was given a 2-bedroom flat. The great thing about India, there's very little health and safety, so you can do what you like. And so we just kept on taking more and more children in. And eventually we threw out all the furniture, and and they slept on the floor. My wife, who was a young 24-year-old nurse at the time, came out. I promised her board lodging. She was quite shocked that she had to share a room with 8 other youngsters, but she took it on the chin and stayed for 18 years after that. But I think the thing that this really tells me is that we take for granted the home, the family. If you don't have a home or a family, this is what you really want. I always thought that children needed food and clothing and education, but of course that's not true. What they really fundamentally want is the love and the care of a home, being brought up by responsible adults, being able to sleep at night, and being able to have a routine where you know that you're going to have 3 regular meals a day. So, the first fundamental thing about Future Hope is our homes. We started off with 2, we now have 7, and they're all run by local parents, house parents. This is Vasudev and his wife Sanchita, and they have a little boy, Rishi. And they all live in the homes amongst the children. They run the small boys' homes. They're all independent when they come to us. They can all look after themselves. They do their own washing, they do their own cleaning, and they do their own cooking. But they live safely, they feel loved, they feel wanted. And this is the children, and when you come to us, you'll see this. In our Roland Road home, which is the major home at the present time, eating dal bhat sabji, dal, rice, and vegetable curry. They sleep on the floor under mosquito nets. And Alex told us about malaria. Malaria is prevalent, mainly now and at the end of the monsoon, but not so much in March when you're coming. The other thing about malaria in Calcutta, it's very easy to treat. It's not like Africa, where you have a lot more problems. We only have 2 types of malaria, and they're very easy to treat. And our girls, we're so lucky. We have fantastic girls, and they're as mischievous as the boys, but they're great fun. This is one of them. About 10 years ago, a very beautiful woman came to me, and she says, I'm 28 years old, I'm a prostitute, and I've got AIDS, and I'm dying. Would you look after my children? And this was her daughter. And of course, we couldn't say no. And this is Pinky when she came to us, completely cowed and squashed and unloved and worried about her mother dying. Well, she's grown up over the last few years, and this is a picture taken of her more recently. She's now finished her A-levels, her A2s, and she's starting at university. And she's now 19 years old. She hit the ground running, but she's recently got married. And this is her with her husband. And they live in a very small flat, but it's their own flat, and they're happy. The girls do a lot of jewellery making, and I put this in, it's a bit of name dropping there, because we were very lucky. The England cricket team came to visit us last November, and this is Alistair Cook, who came to see us, and he was, I must say, pretty good at jewellery making as well. The boys play a lot of chess. So chess is fantastic to grooming your brain and making you think, and we now have 86 youngsters playing very good chess, several of them India-rated, 1 or 2 of them world-rated players. So that's the home, fundamental thing about Future Hope. The second area we concentrate is on health, and this is Mukti Sherpa, who's our doctor. Of course, if you're a street child, you get sick, you can't work, therefore you get sicker because you can't eat, and it's a downward spiral. And initially in Future Hope, we purely concentrated on the preventative side of medicine. But more recently, on the curative side of medicine. More recently, we've been working on the curative side, and now every single child is inoculated with the things that Alex showed you of what you need to get yourselves. Again, it just shows you how you can really make a difference. This is a little girl who is the sister of one of our boys who came to Assam. We reunited with his family, took him back to Assam to meet his mum, who was living on the railway station. And we found this little girl in the hut they lived on the railway line. And she had club feet, and she was put in the back and left. No hope. Well, we did 4 or 5 operations on her, and this was her walking, her first few steps, and this is her in the blue dancing. So a little bit of help goes a very long way. And then finally, the last final thing we do is education. We provide a home and opportunity. An opportunity in India has to be education. The higher you can get in education, the more chance you get of getting a really good job, and the more chance you get of getting a decent salary and looking after your family. We didn't know how to do it. We built a hut on the roof of our of the Borough Babu's place and started to teach. And slowly, slowly, over the last 20 years, we've built this school. We now have 260 children in the school. Of course, street children don't like education. They're frightened of it. They feel inferior. They feel stupid. They feel thick. But they're not. They're bright. They just need a little bit of help, a little bit of teasing out, and they become really good students. Every Friday morning we have an assembly, and we sing our hearts out all sorts of fun songs. And I hope you'll come along. Yes, you'll be there on Friday, so you should be able to come along on our Friday assembly. Of course, as I say, street children don't find it easy. Rupa here works with the little ones, and she does lots of fun, creative things, drawing and painting, and they run around on the roof. And you're just getting them interested in learning. It takes about 6 months, and slowly they get on to starting to concentrate, and eventually they realise that this really is for them. And if they can get to the highest level, class 10, which is O-levels, and class 12, which is A2s, they really will make the grade. I'm very proud to say this year we've had a record number of youngsters, 26, straight off the streets, who've got places in universities around Calcutta and around India, which is a record for us, and we're just so proud of the youngsters. India is known for its IT. Every single one of our youngsters goes onto a computer. And we work very much on teaching them as much as we can. In fact, I said to my rugby team the other day, look lads, I don't want your telephone number, give me your email address so I can email you when there's rugby practice. And they said, oh, Tim Uncle, we don't have emails address, put it through Facebook. And so they've all got Facebook accounts, so that they're as up to date as anybody else. Science, we built this beautiful, my daughter's school raised £10,000 and we built this beautiful science lab because in order to affiliate ourselves to the Delhi board, the CBSE board, we needed science and a science lab to teach. And this was, again, a bit of name dropping. Prince Andrew came over and opened it up for us. And again, we were very, very proud of that day. Only when I had my own 3 children that I realised if you want children to read and write, you've got to read to them and they've got to read to you. And this is our reading room, and we have a scheme now where every single child reads from KG to class 6 every day with a member of our staff or one of our young volunteers. And this is something that we may be able to get you to do, to come and help with reading with our children, because it's certainly a very valuable skill. Fast track. We called it fast track, it's special needs. Children who have learning difficulties, who come into Calcutta straight off the streets at the age of 14, need a little bit of extra help. And we have a super library. All the books have been carried out from the UK and from around India. And it's just great to see the children reading. They do dance, they do Western music, and they do Eastern music. They do Indian, the tabla, the harmonium. Bengalis, Calcuttans are very, very beautiful. And they sing very well and they dance very well. We also have the tug of war. This is something our new CEO, Mike Thompson, who's an Aussie who plays cricket for Australia, introduced. Again, a lot of activities for the school. Hugely competitive. We have four houses in the school. And he's also transformed the whole of the school, so much so that every single youngster now eats in the school at lunchtime. So school now runs from 7:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Sports has had a huge impact on lives of street children. It's a great leveller. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, if you can play sports, and you can prove to be good. This is our rugby team. Again, we've had huge success with our rugby team. We started in 1990, and we eventually entered the adult league, the Calcutta Cup, which is the Indian Calcutta Cup, not the British one. And we eventually ended up playing the police, the army, the Lamakni Old Boys. And one time we beat the police, which was good. Our girls play a lot of football. Do many of you play football? And cricket, of course, is the Indian thing. Everybody loves it. Hockey as well. This was the last mini marathon in Calcutta. 8,000 children took part. We got first place, the chap in the middle, second place, the person on the right-hand side, and fourth place, the person on the left-hand side. We felt pretty good. And it just shows you again, sport, it doesn't matter if you work hard at sport and you train, you can be as good as anybody else. And of course rugby. Well now, rugby has always been a great delight. This was played with the wrong shaped ball, I'm not quite sure why, but it doesn't matter, any chance they have to play rugby, particularly in the monsoon, they do. And they play well. In fact, our under-16 team are the champions of all India. There are 16 states playing, and this was the final last year against an Orissa side, and we won. So we're very proud of the under-16s. Our club side, and these are adults we're playing against, also has done very well, and we won the Centenary Cup in 2011. About 10 years ago, we realised that we would need to expand a little bit, and so for the last 10 years, we've been saving money, and we're buying little bits of land, and we've managed to buy land on the outskirts of Kolkata, where we intend to build a sports foundation, where we can do a lot more sports, and we can eventually build a new school. This is us looking at the plans, but ostensibly, that's the absolute wish which will take part in about 5 years' time, where we hope to have a school in the top right-hand side of 500 children, 1 or 2 sports pitches, and down the bottom, more children's homes for the little boys and the little girls. It's a dream at the moment, but I think it will come true. This is the wall. We've started to put a wall around it. We actually own now about 20 acres of land, which is absolutely brilliant. This is a young lad, Ganesh. Nobody knows where he came from. He was found on the streets. He's always had a smile, which is his great thing. He's got nobody, and he lives in our Barrackpore village. He also works in a firm called BOC, British Oxygen, or the Linde Group, and he runs their computer centre. So from being a street kid, he's now running a whole area of a major multinational. But as I said, he has nowhere to live. 10 years ago, we built a little village where youngsters, as long as they have a good job, they can pay us 500 rupees a month, which is about £8, can stay here. This is Ganesh. He lives on the top floor there. Somebody else lives on the ground floor. They have one simple room, and on the veranda they have a shower and a kitchen. And he was awarded the Employee of the Year last year for his excellence in his work. We're going to build a skills centre here, and this is just about to take off from within the next month or so, so hopefully you'll see it when you come out there. We've concentrated a lot on academics, but not every child is academic, and there's a huge potential for young people to learn skills and put them into practice. And I'll end with a few slides of children when they were on the streets and what they look like now. This is Mintu, one of the first boys on the far left-hand side. He never went to school because we didn't have a school. He was a naughty lad, but a fun-loving lad. And what was to say, when we beat the Calcutta police for the first time in the Calcutta Cup, as I say, the Indian Calcutta Cup, I said to the boys, right lads, we've got to be very modest, come away, and we'll go out for supper. So I took them to Chinatown for supper. In the middle of supper, my mobile rang, and the voice at the other end said, hello, Mr. Grandish. And I said, yes. Dinesh Vadpir, I'm Commissioner of Police. I said, oh, good evening, sir. And he said, your boys beat my boys today. And I said, I'm terribly sorry. He said, no, send your boys down to coach. And ever since that time, Mintu started to coach the Calcutta Police. And I said to him, look, take it seriously, Mintu. This is a really good chance. Of course, being Mintu, he didn't take it seriously. He came back roaring with laughter. And I said, why are you laughing? And he said, Uncle, I tried to take it seriously, but all the police called me sir. And for a street child to be called sir was really rather too much. Anyway, he became one of our drivers, and then after that, he's now running our outreach. He's working with a lot of our children on the streets, and this is his wife and his 2 daughters on holiday. Kabir, again, a wild youngster, ran away many, many times from Future Hope, bright youngster, got a scholarship to a school here in the UK. He played rugby for India, under 19s, very hard, very aggressive lad, but very good. This was when he was captain of the under 19 team in Kunming in China, and this was with Richie McGraw. He was studying at Loughborough University here on a full scholarship. He's now back in Calcutta, and he's married to Christina. They got married last year, and he's doing very well. Nizam, he again, was right off the streets, was very diseased when he came to us. Bright youngster, we got him into Appy J school, and like many of our youngsters, he goes back to the streets and he tries to help youngsters on the streets. He was trying to take this boy off on the left. He got a full scholarship to study in the London School of Commerce to do a master's, and then what did the idiot do? He joined HSBC. And this is him in High Street, Kensington in London, HSBC. He's now married in Bangalore, working for ANZ Bank, and I think he's going places. Lucky, again, straight off the streets, is now a garden manager in Assam. I don't think you're going out to Assam. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. A very modest lad, works extremely hard, is very good at his job, and he frightened the living daylights out of me, because when I went to see him, he was in a big bungalow with 7 servants looking after him, so that was a bit of one-upmanship. Bikash, again, straight off the streets. I've reversed the way I've put this in, because this is the last street child I'll show you. But again, came straight off the streets. He's now studying at Greenwich University, again on a full scholarship. He wants to be an engineer, wants to be a marine engineer, and he's in his last year now. That was when when he'd been with us for 2 or 3 years, and this is how we found him, on the streets. He was so malnourished, the hair had stopped growing on his head, his hands were full of scabies, you could see his ribs, and he probably would have died. But he didn't, and he's doing really well. As I say, we work in the slums, and this is one of the slums we work in with this family. And you see the man on the right, he was one of our old boys, but he ran away to get married to the woman on the left. And when we took this picture about 2 years ago, he was no hoper. He was pulling a trolley, he was a coolie pulling a trolley on the station between midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning. And he has 4 children, and they were going nowhere. And he said, look, I've failed, but could you take my children? And we said to him, look, we'll give you one last chance. And from being an absolute wreck of a person, he's come through, and this is him now on the right-hand side. He's now become a driver for Future Hope, and he's doing really well. And then if you look at the little girl in the orange, again, she had no chance, but with a bit of help and a bit of love, this is what she looks like now. And she's in our school, and she's going from strength to strength. She's very bright, and unlike her father, she will go far. She'll go to university and on. Pooja, my last pictures. She lived with her mother in a slum, in a little hut on a lorry park. This was the hut. And the awful thing is that if you live on a lorry park, this is her mother who's mentally challenged. If you live on a lorry park, you get lorry drivers. And lorry drivers look for women to sleep with. And the lorry drivers would go and sleep with the mother. And if the mother wasn't there, they would sleep with the daughter. And we were absolutely horrified. And she was horrified. And so we took her off the streets, and this is her now. And again, she's a happy, precocious, fun-loving girl. A little bit attention-seeking, but that doesn't matter. She's doing well. She even had the guts to say hi to Prince Andrew when he came around to see us. And I'll end with just a few slides of the streets and the railway stations. Our work is there. It has always been there, and we must make sure that it remains there, because that is where the children have absolutely nothing, have no parents, no family, and no opportunity. And if they can come to us, we can give them the home, and we can give them the chance to make their life. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, Alex wants me to speak, but like you, it's easier if I can't see you, because it's really hard to speak, isn't it, after that? What a moving story. And this is real, and we're all going to go and experience some part of this. But what I think is important for us is that we don't just go and experience it, but some part of it comes away with us, and then perhaps we'll do something different ourselves. Perhaps in 5 years' time, we'll come and help teach at your school, or perhaps we'll do some work, or, I mean, it's just incredible, really. I'm incredibly moved, and I'm not in India at the moment, so I don't know what it's going to be like when we're there. But I think it's quite difficult, I think, for us to understand that. I think it's going to be quite difficult for your children to understand that. But I think what you'll find is we'll be going through it together. Thankfully, Alex has the experience and the understanding of what we're going to be going through alongside your children. But what you've spent your life doing, I'm sure that banking is an honourable profession. Well, I'm sure it is. It must be. Silly as something.
It was.
But it was, yes. And I'm sure that a lot of very honourable bankers, particularly local branch managers, were just delightful people. But what you've ended up spending your life doing is something very, very special indeed. And just to see how those people have changed in their life opportunities and their chances, there must be more that we can do. And I'm sure that after we've been there, what's important is we don't just go and do the tourist bit, but it changes who we are, and that we're affected by that, and that we come back and do more to help. But I'm in awe of what you've done. I'm sure everybody else is in awe of what you've done. To create a life like that is just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.